let's return to a story we brought to you a little bit earlier, and that was that U.S. President Joe Biden has approved the construction of a new section of a border wall in southern Texas. It comes amid a surge of migrants crossing on the U.S.-Mexico border. But the decision has angered the Mexican president, who called it a step backwards. Well, for more on this, let's bring in Arise U.S. correspondent Rotimi Kade, who joins us live from Washington. Very warm welcome to the program. And let's just get straight into it. President Biden, of course, has been defending the construction of a new section of the border wall in southern Texas. What is the reaction coming out of Washington?
Well, that's an existential question. And believe it or not, what has been coming out of Washington in the last 24 hours has been that of policy somersaults, as alluded to by some Democratic lawmakers who believe that the border wall is absolutely not the way to go in curbing the migration problems in the southern border of the United States. But the question now is, what is exactly, the solution to it? Nobody has, the ultimate solution to how the border crisis could be solved. And don't forget that Washington has been under a lot of pressure, I should say, in terms of, passing, meeting up the deadline, with the Republican party's members in the Congress, which of course led to the ousting of the speaker. So right now, President Biden is in a very difficult situation. He's in a very tight corner. So he had to sort of concede, to the idea of building the border wall. According to what he said, from the clip, he said that he had to use the money, the emergency funds. Don't forget that one of the things that he did when he assumed office in 2020 was to halt the construction of the wall by the former administration of Trump, and also to stop the emergency funding to build the wall. But again, with over 200,000, migrants coming into the U.S. In the last 1 year, and there's no solution in sight, I think is caving under the pressure that something had to be done. That money needs to be used, and also to make sure that, deportation is also on the table. Making sure that they can reduce as much as possible. Because right now, President Biden is also facing mounting pressure, from U.S. cities that have been overwhelmed by migration. And of course, yesterday, reacting to President Biden's decision, former President Trump said that President Biden should apologize to him because it was right all the way.
Indeed. Well, Rotimi, the U.S. Secretary of State is in Mexico. What is he hoping to achieve during this visit?
Well, I think there's so many things that he's trying to put on the table for a great ally. That's the Mexican president, Lopez Obrador, who they've enjoyed some sort of great camaraderie in the past 1 year. And trying to say, well, it's not a policy shift, but something needs to be done. It's like a stopgap, to the unwavering, question about migration. And if nothing is done about it, I can tell you that the U.S. cities will be overwhelmed in the coming, days or weeks or years to come, because right now Mexico is being seen as a kind of a place like a camping site, for these migrants. It's a transit route, to the United States. So if Mexico government is not ready to, tighten immigration policy, from their own end, it's going to be so difficult for the U.S. to achieve, that they wish to achieve. Now, the ball is on the court of Mexico to ensure that, they stop migration from coming into their own country and use them as a transit route to the United States.
Now, of course, we know that in the last couple of elections, this has been a central issue. Now, of course, counting down to the next election, how big an issue will these migrant crossings be as we count down to the next presidential election?
Well, apart from the economic issue, I think border security is going to be second on the list. And if you've been following Republican debates recently, I think that's the number one agenda of most of the candidates. They say that they're definitely going to make it their number one policy to ensure that the migrants' illegal migration has been curbed at least to the minimum, and massive deportation is going to be taking full effect. President Biden also, and even within his party, like for instance, you have cities like New York, like Washington, D.C., and Michigan, most of it some Democratic cities, and the so-called sanctuary cities are being overwhelmed right now, and they're under immense pressure. They could lose the popularity in those cities. And you know what election is, they always say that it has consequences. So if nothing is being done about it before that time, perhaps maybe we're going to be seeing a dramatic turn in some of the blue states turning to purple or perhaps red.
Well, that sounds like a fair assessment, and we certainly appreciate your time here on Newsday. Arise correspondent Rotimi Kade, thank you for joining us.